I grew up in upstate New York in a fairly rural area, but my father had business ties to Japan, and I got exposed as a child. I was always very interested in it, and couldn't get there in high school or college for various reasons, athletic commitments and academic commitments. So I went in the late 80s, soon after graduating. I just came over because I wanted to spend 6 months and learn about the country. And I ended up, as happens in a lot of cases, accidentally falling into a business opportunity that turned into a pretty interesting startup in the field of executive education and corporate education, and built up a little company that I merged eventually with the Princeton Review in Tokyo. And we did that for about 3 years. So that took my 6-month plan to almost 3 years, and quite an interesting experience and quite lucrative. And towards the end of that tenure, having started a company with no relevant experience, no plan, no credibility, I started another company in Tokyo in a similar field in education with capital and experience and credibility. And I knew all the right words, and, I could make a spreadsheet. And by all measures, that second startup failed horribly. And it was a very interesting experience to have, doing 2 startups in a row as a young guy. And it was very interesting to do it in Tokyo. And that became a catalyst for me going into graduate school and eventually going to the Copan Fellows program to sort of figure out what is the DNA of a successful startup. And it's certainly I only had an N of 2. I had a sample size of 2. And I was pretty sure that being completely clueless was not the ultimate formula, which was what I did when I was successful. And that took me on a long, probably 30-year journey of exploring, what that could be.
I see. Okay. And then you started the fund, Sozo, right? But before going into that, I want to ask a few things. So you told me that you started 2 companies, one that you were able to sell and the other didn't really go well. What was the company that you founded? What are the companies you founded here in Tokyo?
Well, the first company was called Reference Media, and sold it in about 7 months to the Princeton Review. The second company we never got around to naming. We just called it Newco. And
okay, interesting.
it failed. It failed before it even got a name. It was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster.
And the capital that you got, that is from Japanese investor or from the States?
The first startup was completely self-funded. It was very profitable out of the gates. I was undergrad, was a early 20s aerospace engineer. I didn't know anything about finance. I'd never taken a finance course. So I didn't know. I just thought company needed to be profitable, or why would you do it? So it was profitable, made money, and then the second company I personally financed.
I see. Interesting. And then what exactly brought you to Japan? So you came here when you were undergrad, right?
Right after my undergrad, I came, and it was it was a thing that you probably any 23, 24-year-old can understand. I was going to go to graduate school. My thinking was, if I don't do this now, it's going to get harder and harder to do it. And I had thought about doing it in high school, and I just couldn't. I had too many athletic commitments to take a year off, and I wanted to do it in college, but aerospace mechanical engineering doesn't work well for transfer because your courses are too rigorous. So you basically
I see.
Education. So I just never did it. Then I said, all right, I'm going. And it was not like some grand plan. I think I had $1,000 in my pocket. I didn't speak Japanese. I had a floor of a friend I could sleep on. That was my plan.
Nice. Cool. And so the second company
I've had my life since to the age of 56. So.
Okay. So the second company that didn't go well, what do you think was the reason for that failure? Was it the language barrier that you had, or not understanding well about Japan, or what was it?
No, I mean, it had nothing to do with Japan. It was 2 other Americans. There was no language barrier. It was what I eventually came to learn after 30 years is I think in the fashionable analysis of a startup, generally people move towards the quality of technology, just technology in and of itself. And if not, they may look at the finance side. The basis of all great startups is culture, alignment, great communication, people understanding they need to be aligned, somebody taking the lead of making sure everybody's aligned. And then the second piece is business model and making sure you're building something that is delightful and profitable and scales easily. We never even got to the business model. We fell apart culturally. And that, that was something that I took away as kind of the effective leader of that organization. I took it away as the responsibility that I would learn. And I try to never let it happen again in any other organization I lead, is to invest an incredible amount of time in making sure everybody is clear on what everyone else is doing, that they understand their purpose, that we are working towards alignment, and we have systems in place when we get out of alignment, which is what humans are going to do. So that's a quick punchline of 30 years of studying this problem.